Today on the Sober Life Rocks podcast, we're joined by somebody who's turned personal pain into a powerful mission. From surviving trauma and addiction to leading corporate teams and now guiding others in transformational coaching, Kerri Lewis is here to share her incredible journey of resilience and empowerment. You won't want to miss this inspiring conversation.
Welcome to the Sober Life Rocks podcast. You may have made the decision not to drink alcohol, or at the very least, not at work-related events. Whether you've never been a drinker, are in recovery, or made a health-related decision, we see you, and you are not alone. In today's world, networking, socializing, and celebrations often happen over drinks, and the struggle can be real. Through this podcast, we're changing that narrative. We're here to create a community where individuals like you, who choose not to drink or drink less, can find camaraderie, support, and practical advice.
Before we get started, Sober Life Rocks is hosting a conference, Amplify Sober Voices, on January 15th, 2026, where we're bringing together influencers, speakers, writers, podcasters, creators to reimagine what a truly inclusive, alcohol-optional world looks like. And if you're interested in being part of the growing movement we're seeing, we would love to have you join us. Learn more at amplifysobervoices.com. My guest today is Kerri Lewis, a transformational coach and recovery advocate who helps individuals break free from addiction, perfectionism, and the pursuit of external validation. Kerri's path has been anything but linear. After overcoming a tumultuous childhood, addiction, and personal loss, she climbed the corporate ladder, eventually becoming a CEO without a formal degree. But her sister's tragic death from alcoholism became a catalyst for Kerri to leave her corporate role and dedicate her life to helping others heal. Through her coaching practice, Kerri empowers clients to reconnect with their authentic selves, using tools like breathwork, meditation, and mindset shifts. She's passionate about moving people from a place of suffering to one of self-love and empowerment. Kerri, welcome to Sober Life Rocks podcast.
Oh, it's going to be a party, and I'm so glad to be here. Thank you for this beautiful opportunity. And I think, moreover, thank you for being an example and embodying what a sober life looks like, too, because it is in our embodiment of our work that we give other people permission to do it, too.
Talking my language, girl.
Mm-hmm.
So I would love it if you would just tell like a brief version of your journey from, I always am fascinated how childhood influences who we become as adults and that path, but yours extends beyond childhood. So just give us the condensed version.
Sure. As a result of the environment I was in, I made up stories that I was unworthy and not lovable. And those belief systems caused me to lean into behaviors that were catastrophic, from addiction to sex and drugs, to alcohol and the pursuit of success, which really led me feeling I didn't know who I was. I was just so shallow and unfulfilled. But my passion for understanding and curiosity led me at an early age to start studying the mind and philosophies and psychologies, which ultimately led me to break free from the beliefs that I had created in my subconscious and live a life that truly is one of individuality, spontaneity, and definitely I'm authentic.
Yes. So you grew up in this world where you were led to believe that you weren't worthy. And I totally resonated with the notion of pursuing perfectionism.
Mm-hmm.
Like that is one that I have struggled through and working through even today. I mean, it creeps up, right? It's that inside voice that comes up. But it also leads us to be ambitious and to be quite often successful. So tell me about that path and like how, in your bio, it says that you became a CEO of a company. Like, tell me about that piece of it.
Yeah, well, so there's a couple things. One, the environment I was in, I created my own beliefs. And I think that's really important for the listening audience to understand is yes, we are part of the environment, but it was beliefs that stories that I made up about myself based on my experiences. And that's important because I needed to take ownership of the stories I created so that I could let those go. And to answer your question, one of the stories that I was driven by was I would not be successful because I didn't go to college. My parents came from academia and really, impressed upon their children the importance of higher ed. And so my drive to prove my parents wrong led me to really just dig in and achieve success. And I've always been a natural born leader within my family. And so at 17, despite struggling with addictions, I found myself in a leadership role, which led me to start studying leadership because at the time I had to survive. But I also knew I was achieving results through intimidation. And that wasn't okay with me because I knew I was a kind person at the core. So I started studying leadership, which led me just to continue to build upon my leadership skills, which put me in a position to get bigger roles until I was asked to help with a startup company where I was CEO.
And so during that time, you were also drinking and using?
Yes. So I've had different moments. So, I experienced assault, sexual assault, and that forced me to get sober from drugs and break free from my abusive relationship. But I never again worked on those underlying belief systems. And this is really the important piece I want people to understand. If you're not examining the beliefs about yourself, you're operating from this very skewed perspective about yourself. So I was driven. And so I was working 5 a.m. to 10 p.m. and I had 2 young children. I was so unfulfilled. So I fell back into addiction to alcohol just to numb out because I couldn't understand how, on the surface, I had the American dream, the house, the dog, the husband, the 2 kids, but I was so unfulfilled. And I mean, there were times when I really questioned the reason for me being alive in the first place.
Mm. Yep. And I think, self-medicating is often what leads us from social drinking into abusive drinking,
A
because we're
hundred
just trying
percent.
to fill that hole and fill that place and fill that anxiety. And at the end of the day, we can either say, I deserve this because I've had such a horrible day, or we can say, I deserve this because I've had such a great day. And either which
Absolutely.
way, it's still this narrative that somehow alcohol is going to be the cure to the feelings that we're having.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, you just touched upon an important point. Feelings that we're having, our feelings are really powerful and can be used as a catalyst to learn about what beliefs drive us and our behaviors. But most people, those feelings can feel so uncomfortable. And in a society where we have been conditioned to, oh, just push through it, suck it up, don't cry about it, it's really difficult to allow yourself to feel what it is that's coming up for you. But when you do, you then learn what it is you need in a more nurturing, supportive way that's going to help you make more informed choices.
You just said that, and it reminded me a couple of years ago in 2020, I um, hit a wall in my own personal development where I'd been sober at that point for 15 years, but I was pushing myself with those old tapes so hard that I literally burned out and had a
Yeah.
physical manifestation of that. And so I was working with a therapist who said, I hear you use this language of like, I'm just going to push through, or I'm going to go tackle the bills to be paid, or I'm going to go like conquer this. And she said, I want you to start journaling the words that you're using and then coming up with alternate words. Like, I'm just going to go and poke at the bills, or I'm going to go and, ease through the end of my day. And
Mm,
just picking these words gave my body the chance to go, oh, okay, I'm not in fight or flight. I'm just
yep.
in that place of being able to relax into the thing that still needed to be done, but it was
Yeah.
just a physical reaction that my body was having to these harsh tackle push words.
Well, I share with my clients a lot. Words have power. There is profound power in words, and we are either lifting ourselves up and breathing life into ourselves, or we are destroying and tearing down our life based on the words that we use. It's why I encourage people to reconsider words such as try, should have, I could have. If you were meant to do it, you do it. And can you come from a place of curiosity rather this condemnation, this language that suggests that you didn't do enough? Because quite frankly, you're exactly where you're meant to be, and you are enough in this moment. You don't have to achieve to be worthy of your own self-love and to be worthy of the love of people who can see you for who you are, not what you accomplish.
1,000%. But Kerri, I'm guessing that you weren't always in that mental place. So there you were using alcohol to cope with all of the things that were coming at you as you were running this company, this startup. What happened to switch that switch and have you examine your relationship with alcohol and eventually get sober?
Yeah, well, let's be clear. I knew from the get-go that I had a problem. I mean, I knew in my teens that I leaned heavily into substances as a way to numb out. And again, I am a very curious person by nature. So I started studying psychology at 14, which led to philosophy, and theology, and ultimately quantum physics. So I knew I had a problem. I always knew I had a problem. It's just that the information that I had absorbed over the course of 25 plus years was just that. It was information. I hadn't really applied any of the information into my everyday rhythms to get results. But really, there were several factors, mainly my older sister passing away from alcoholism. And I ended up in her apartment, and it was a fairly traumatic site to be in.
Mm.
And I made a promise to myself in that moment that come hell or high water, not only was I going to break the addiction that I struggle with, but I was going to break the generational trauma that has cursed my family for at least a good century. And within 6 months, I packed up my sister's car, drove cross country by myself, and left everything: my secure marriage, my career, all my assets. And I took my two kids and I moved into my sister's dining room. They had to put up wallboard to cover the room so I had privacy. And I just started to apply the information that I had acquired over 25 years or more, and started really infusing it into my daily behaviors. And that's how I started to break free from addiction. And I never quit cold turkey. And, everybody has their own journey. But for me, I am a really big fan of learning so many tools and incorporating new behaviors into our daily rhythms that eventually alcohol was obsolete. It didn't have a purpose because I knew how to nurture myself in a way that was really supportive and caring rather than self-destructive.
Mm. I've heard that theme a couple of times come up recently, that if we can put the tools in place while we're still struggling with something, then when we finally turn that corner, the tools aren't brand new at the
Mhm.
same time as this new life is brand new. That's beautiful.
Absolutely. And that's why I think when you look at, right, sobriety and addiction and the statistics, it's pervasive that people relapse consistently, and it's like 80%, right?
Or more.
I believe that the problem lies in we have this expectation of people quitting the thing that keeps them from suffering. And as I shared with the listening audience earlier, we've not been taught that our feelings are monumentally important to us being able to learn ourselves and what feels good for ourselves. And so we go from this thing that keeps us at least able to tolerate our existence in this really hard world to suffering and white knuckling it. And that just never made sense to me. And so for me, when I work with clients in addiction, I always encourage them, and I'm a huge proponent of curiosity. You're gonna go for a glass of wine tonight? Okay, cool. Before you take a sip, ask yourself why, and then take the sip, because every time you actually ask yourself why, you're gaining information. And in that information lies power for you to come up with a tool that the next time that specific situation happens, your mom calls and upsets you, rather than going for a drink, you know you need to go for a walk because you're more inclined to drink.
Beautiful. Beautiful. So, Kerri, here's the real rub. Here's the real question that I have, because I stayed private about my sober choices for 18 and a half years because the stigma was real. When did your sobriety shift from something being personal to where you felt called to do something about it publicly?
I'm a little different in that I never ever had a shame story around my addiction. In fact, I shared it fairly regularly. Again, I've been very self-aware. I had a shame story about, the behaviors and the things that I'd done within addiction. So, okay, a good example. I was 10 or 11 and so isolated and alone. I lied to my mom and told her I was raped, right? So,
Mm.
fast forward in my teens, guess what? I really got raped. So, not only am I ashamed because I'm a horrible person for lying about something, but then I caused that to actually happen. So it was really when I started to examine why I made that choice. Why would I lie at 12 years old about being raped? And then I look at it from a curiosity perspective. Oh, that's right. I'm one of 6 kids. My parents are emotionally unavailable. I have no friends because I've always been quirky and weird. I'm craving attention because I'm that person who wants to be seen, wants to be nurtured, wants to be loved. It makes sense that this thing that would have my mother respond and react, I would say. And then, of course, fast forward, yes. Would I encourage people to lie about that? No, but at least I can give myself grace and forgive myself. And then I can forgive the fact that, okay, if I made this mistake, the person who wounded me was most likely wounded. So I can forgive them. And so it was really coming from a place of why is it I made that choice? And when I learned to be curious about it without condemnation, and that's the thing is without judging myself, I felt compelled to share with others because shame and guilt keep us separate. And we as a human species are meant for connection. We need to connect. We need to be seen. We need to be intertwined with others. And so I felt morally responsible for having done the work, sharing with others my story, because our stories are superpower when we transmute the pain, so that somebody else can see that if I have gone through all of these experiences, then they too can navigate a lot of hardship and overcome it and not just survive, which I see a lot of people in recovery doing, but really thrive. Take it from just existing as a sober individual to creating a life that feels so joy filled and so empowered and so individualized to themselves.
You're touching on something that I personally am struggling with right now, and I've heard it all over the media, is this loneliness epidemic. And that COVID, on the one hand, taught us that we don't always have to run out to go do all the things, that there are things that we can enjoy on our own or with our families. But on the other hand, I think it swung really far to the other side of the pendulum now, to where people don't know how to build community or don't know how to make connections. So as somebody who's either newly sober or has been sober for a while like me, but doesn't quite know where to find those connections, especially in a world that is seemingly, the currency of connection is alcohol. right?
Mm-hmm.
So I was just this weekend on a trip and with a choir that I sing with. And so what happened during the evenings is everybody went out to go to the bars or to the karaoke bars or to the whatever. And so I could go there and perfectly fine navigate that, but it's uncomfortable for me and it's not fun. I don't feel connected when people are at a bar just drinking. So what
Yeah.
do you recommend for people who want to build that community, who want to feel that connection?
Well, here's the thing, we're meant for growth and expansion, and in order to really step into our power, we must get comfortable with rejection. And I think what I'm continuing to bear witness to is people wanting to connect, but being afraid to make the first move for fear of rejection. And I love being rejected. It's my absolute favorite thing in the world at this point because it continues to reinforce that I love myself to show up unapologetically. And I'm not for everybody, but because I know who I am, I attract what it is I want. So I don't have the same experience. And this is where I really encourage your listening audience start to get curious about your belief systems. I experienced many environments where sobriety is just a natural, it's just people are sober. But I think it's because I'm just comfortable in that lens. So that's what I attract to me. I attracted a man to me who's never taken a drink in his life. He's into fitness. But it's also because I'm unapologetically me. So I think the bigger piece that I want to impress upon your listening audience, whether you're newly sober or in sobriety for a really long time, is what brings you so much joy? What feels really good for you? Is it wearing skulls? Is it dressing up in cosplay costumes, which my boyfriend does regularly? Is it showing up at an anime orchestra? Giving yourself permission to do the things that really bring you joy, and don't focus on whether there's sober people or not, because if you're in joy, you're emitting an energy that's going to attract people in joy. And then you start to weed out what serves you and doesn't. So it's kind of you're asking the universe, God, whatever you believe in, or you're training your psyche to find what it is you're looking for. And to dial in a little bit further, we have what's called a reticular activating system. And this is where intention setting gets very, very helpful. We have the GPS in our brain. Basically says it's going to find whatever it is you want it to find. And it's proven through science. But most people wake up, they start doomsday scrolling. They have no structure around their day. And so they just experience moment to moment without focused attention. For me, I set a very clear intention every single morning, non-negotiable, because I've trained my brain to find what it is I'm looking for. It can't help but find it. And anybody can try this. It's instantaneous. If you say, I want to see a rainbow, within 3 days, if you forget about it, you will see a rainbow. It may not be the rainbow in the sky, but it may be a rainbow sticker. It may be a rainbow cup. You'll see that rainbow. And then that's just evidence that your brain will work for you. You just have to train it to see what you want it to see.
Hmm. Okay, so let me just bring this to like a really functional level. Let's
Yes.
say that someone works in a corporate environment and is sober,
Yes.
and their job is either in sales or some role where they have to regularly like take people out and schmooze them, um, or their bosses like regularly have after work happy hours. So you're navigating all of this. You're a sober person. It's not that you're worried about drinking, but it's about how do you connect in those environments when that is your role.
Yeah. So my intention is to connect with individuals who are sober. It is so simple. I mean, it's a practice, it's a habit, and trust me, I have to be honest. It took me a long time because my thinking mind wanted to control the outcome. My thinking mind said, there's no logical way that I can think about this and it's going to happen. Because conditioned to problem solve. We do not need to problem solve. If we just get clear on what it is we want to experience, whether you're a sober individual looking to meet a sober individual, or you're a sober individual looking to work in an environment where sobriety is fostered, it can happen for you. You just have to be clear, and then you have to trust that it will. You can't try to plan, okay, well, if I go to the gym, then I might meet a sober person. No, no, no. My intention is, and then what happens is some person walks up and you're, hey, how are you? Oh, yeah, I'm not a drinker, so I'm going to do this. And then you're like, wow, that just really happened. And I tell people, well, I never tell anybody. I encourage people, stack evidence, because the proof is in the pudding. I never want anybody to ever believe the thing I say, Margie. I really don't. I want people to just try it, be a scientist of your own life, and the evidence will appear. And then as you stack it and you keep listing it, more and more instances of that will happen.
I had a girlfriend who lost her daughter. A drunk driver killed her when she was 17. And she was desperately looking for some evidence that her daughter was still there. And so she attached the idea that when she saw angels, it was a glimpse of her daughter. And so she did exactly that. She saw angels everywhere, all the time, all the time.
Well,
Go to a
and
gift
here's
shop,
the
there's a little
thing.
angel, or go to driving along and somebody's got an angel sticker on the back of their car. Or she was at a Starbucks one time and somebody had literally just drawn an angel on the side of their cup. Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, we're energy no matter how you slice it. I mean, I've studied world theology and I've studied quantum physics because my parents come from academia and I needed that logic and the science, but then I needed to understand theology because I didn't grow up spiritual at all. And no matter how you slice it, both schools of thinking prove the existence of an unseen force. However you derive that, I don't care. And so we have the power to tap into something greater than ourselves. It's just, again, our natural inclination is to problem solve. So I want to experience more moments of environments with people in sobriety. But then we say it, but then we're like, okay, so I need to do this and this and this. There's a greater power that will plan it all for you. You've just got to get clear on what it is you want to experience and then trust and surrender. And the trust and surrender is where I see a lot of people struggle. In all forms of organized religion, you see all these people spouting all this dogma, but very few actually put into practice the principles of what the great spiritual thought leaders have been touting since the beginning of time.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yep. So I want to go back to a theme we started with earlier, which is this perfectionism and people pleasing and all of that, because I feel like that's now circled back around especially in high functioning people.
Yeah.
And so it's the same concept of, setting these intentions, but at the same time, just pushing back, like there are expectations on us that we perform at a certain level if we're in a job, that we do the things that are put out in front of us, or we have the strategic thoughts. So, and being unapologetically yourself, I think is super, super valuable. But in corporate settings or in job settings, I mean, there's certain expectations of behavior and so forth. So how do you stay true to yourself? How do you try to work through this perfectionism or people pleasing, while still being functional and successful and meeting the expectations of the role that you're in?
Well, I mean, everything's subjective, Margie, and this is where I encourage people again to do the work on their subconscious. So I'll give you a really good example. I helped build a company that was worth $122 million. I was instrumental in the environment and the culture of this company. And I had my core values. They were non-negotiable. And I had a new leader come in and he encouraged me to go against my core values in order to, appease him and the environment. I quit
Can
on the spot.
can
I
you give
built
me,
this company.
can you give me the specifics of like what that looked like?
Yeah, interestingly enough. So he asked me to go out and have drinks with my employees. because I'm tough. So I am very fair. As a leader, I would invest 100% of my time into an individual. And the minute they said they understood expectations and they felt confident to execute their job, I held them accountable to that, which we do not see a lot in this day and age. People are not good at setting boundaries. Corporate leaders are included in this. And so some of my employees would give pushback because I would challenge them to do that. And my new boss was a younger individual, and he felt that I should have better social relationships with my employees. And I was not willing to do that. And so, again, I felt very comfortable putting on the spot, despite the fact that I was the one who built the company to the capacity it was. But I will tell you, I'm unwavering in my belief in people. And that's where I struggle. I'm not willing to bend on my moral or my value, because my value is to see the best in people. And most people will settle, particularly in corporate America, because I've worked in corporate America for 25 years. Oh, you're mediocre at that job. I'm going to let you just stay in that job because it's easier than holding you accountable to doing a better job and proving to yourself that you have the capacity to grow and expand. And I felt very, very passionate about investing in my employees by the time that situation unfolded, and I wasn't willing to bend. It's uncomfortable. The reality is even how I built my business is now a global business in 5 years. I've done no marketing. I spent the first year and a half, 2 years doing the work for free for people because I needed to stack evidence for myself that what it is I offered had value. But I believed in myself so much because I had worked on my belief systems, my core values, and what I knew I was capable of, that I was willing to do what felt right for me, despite the fact that it didn't make sense to other people. I have the Skull for Business logo. I basically tell people I'm going to gut you like a fish because that's really what's going to happen, because we're going to strip down every core value you've ever had. You get to keep them if they feel yummy and good for you. But if they tear you down and dismiss you as the amazing person you are, we're going to replace those with ones that affirm you. And in doing so, I was able to build a business where I get referrals all the time. And so I encourage people, yeah, we are conditioned to believe that we need to perform to the standard that corporate America has expected us to perform to. But I'm going to tell you, I was uniquely myself in the company that I helped build, and it sold for $122 million. And so I never believed that I needed to do it the way somebody else told me I needed to do it. I did need to be honest. I held myself in high integrity. I needed to be very vulnerable whenever I made mistakes. And I always was with all my employees and with the people who, I worked for. But in doing so, I was very, very true to what felt right for me. And because I trusted myself rather than did what made sense for other people, I was far more successful than many people who have doctorate degrees in the very thing that I've created in my own business. So
yeah, amen. I love, just to sort of bring this full circle, I love that alcohol or drugs, they often put us into hiding.
100%.
And coming out of that hiding is going to look different for everybody. But I know there's somebody listening today who needed to hear exactly what you just said.
I just want to add two things. My success derived on two behaviors that have carried me, right? I needed to learn to ask for help and not be ashamed at a very young age. I was 14. I didn't have the degree. I had to ask for clarification from bosses. I needed to understand. And even though I got egg on my face a lot of times because individuals in the room were like, well, that's common sense, I needed to survive. And so that was the greatest tool that I ever learned very, very young, right? And the other thing, again, embrace the word no, because the reality is how do you truly know who you are? If you're so focused on getting yeses by everybody, you're basically at the whim of an individual's perspective of you. And does it sting when I get rejected to this day? Absolutely, because I want connection just like the next person. However, I have so many tools in my sobriety that can nurture myself in that sting and say, you know what, it's cool. And because I was rejected, I'm then open to experience different opportunities, like being asked to be part of this amazing podcast that is encouraging other people to live fully expressed in sobriety. And so I am so truly honored to be here. I feel really privileged, and I wouldn't be here if I wasn't able to lean into those two tools, which is ask for help and embrace the word no.
Kerri, if you could leave a legacy, what would it be?
Love. Hands down, I know my tattoo right here says, lead with love, live with courage. To truly love unconditionally means to be you have to be incredibly courageous. Because I love people who tell me to screw off. I love people who I will show up in service to them and they will straight out tell me I'm worthless. But I still choose to love them because at the core of who we are love. And in love, we can connect to other people. Through judgment, I can't. And so I am empowered and passionate about I will not show up in my day-to-day life if I can't come from love. And there are days when I don't. I will tuck myself in my room and I will go through the motions that I need to come back to love. But I am love and you are love. And in love, we will see a healed world.
Love that. I'm so grateful to you. I'm so grateful to you for spending time coming with us on the podcast today, because just you exude all the things that you say. It's not just words. Like, this is who you are at your core. And I think people who maybe feel like they've been beat up by life or have had a tough time can hear you and know that there is not only a path forward, but there's a path expanding.
Absolutely. And that's why I challenge every coach, therapist, psychiatrist, mental health worker, doctor, nurse. We've got to embody the work. I knew and could tell psychology from the age of 20 on. But did I actually know how to apply the principles? Not until I embodied the work. It's messy, it's icky, and it's sticky, but it's worth it because, to your point, I am what you see is what you get. I show up as myself in every area of my life the same. And people, that's a resonance. That's an energy that you cannot fake.
That's why I
And
wanted
we
to
all have it.
Yeah, that's why I wanted to get to know you better. Like, you and I met on another sober gathering, and I was just like, "Ooh, I want to get to know you better."
Yeah.
Yeah,
Likewise. And I'm the same way. And you just gave your listening audience the key to their own success. Who is the person that you're like, oh, I want to get to know you better? Trust your heart, not your head, because your heart will always lead you in the right direction.
yeah, that's so cool. How can people connect with you?
KerriLewis.coach is my website. My phone number is on there. I love unexpected calls for the person who's listening and just having a moment and they're like, I don't know, give me a call. If I'm available, I will answer. And if I'm not, I'll call you back, because people were on the other line for me during the times when I didn't know that I could keep going. And I want to be that lifeline for other people.
Thank you. And to everybody who's listening, if Kerri's story resonated with you, remember what she said: asking for help is not a sign of weakness, it's a sign of strength. Like, your voice matters and your journey is worth celebrating. If you enjoyed this episode, please rate, review, and share it with someone else who might benefit from hearing Kerri's insights. And don't forget to subscribe for more inspiring conversations. Finally, please mark your calendars for January 25th and get your ticket to Amplify Sober Voices. It's a day dedicated to connection, to empowerment, and to celebrating your sober journey. Visit amplifysobervoices.com. Until next time, keep showing up, stay proud, and remember, Sober Life rocks because you rock. Thank you, Kerri.
Yes, thank you.